Okay, thank you, everyone. We are ready to begin. It is February 10th. It is 4:02. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order, and I'll go through roll call for planning commission members. Joey Edwards, I believe, is not going to make it tonight. Steve Stevens,
Here.
Dave Clark Farrell, Jason Marufo,
Here.
Ryan Hill, and then David Jurek.
Here.
Jurek?
Jurich.
Yep. Thank you. Great, and with that, we will go ahead and make David, who is an alternate, a regular voting member for this evening. Roll call for county commissioners, Commissioner Tharp.
Here.
Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Bullock.
Here.
Thank you. Changes or additions to the agenda? Nothing? Okay. We have the minutes from January 27th. If everybody had a chance to review those, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 23rd, 27th.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Updates from staff.
Updates from staff. So, I think that the biggest update that we have is last week we kicked off, the one community project. And, it was we had such a great turnout. We were at, the Southern Fire Station, Freight, Silver Llama, before and after,
Full
the
circle?
public library, Full Circle. And through all those public engagements, I know we saw a lot of you there. And it was just, it was great. It was a time when the community really came together and talked about what was important to them as a community. And, but it's the first step in a little over a year-long process that will eventually lead both the county and city planning commissions into the creation of the comprehensive plan and Board of County Commissioners and City Council. So it was just a really great turnout, and we really dug into some basic questions that immediately I think that we can all see there's some common themes and some overlapping interests, no matter kind of where your interest might lie as a community member. So it was just great, and so thank you all for attending and participating in that, and watch for more. We're going to be doing a lot more work on the project and coming back for various times to continue to see if we've gotten it right. Also, it was an opportunity for all of us to learn how to have these conversations as community members with anyone that hasn't participated yet. So continuing to encourage everyone, there's a values form right there on the front desk. They're online. If anybody wants one or wants to know how to facilitate a conversation or have staff help with that, please, we're going to continue to try to reach out to all our community. So if you know of people that haven't had those conversations yet, we really like them, their voices in the mix. So I think that's the biggest update that we have. We will be having a conditional use permit coming forward for your review. CC's doing a conditional use permit for an ADU. Of course, we will be talking today with Melissa about the sign code, and then looking for a public hearing our next regular meeting on a code amendment for the sign code.
Okay.
So I think those are our updates.
Okay. Thank you.
Melissa or CC, do you guys have anything else?
No, I think we're all tired at the end of last week, so I know you were there too, so we'll do.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm gonna jump us right on in it. We have new business. First one is file 24-42 and 24-43, which is the Timber Ranch major subdivision and the planned unit development preliminary plans. And we'll got, oh no, I gotta do a opening statement. Y'all could listen to me ramble for a minute. The Lake County Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners will now conduct a joint public hearing. This statement I'm reading shall be incorporated into and made part of the record on these proceedings. The Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners have jurisdiction to conduct a joint public hearing on major subdivision and planned unit development preliminary plan applications, so many keys right there, under sections 3.16 and 3.11 of the Lake County Land Development Code. The purpose of this hearing is to consider whether the major subdivision and PUD preliminary plan applications should be approved. In considering that matter, the commission will address the approval criteria set forth in sections 3.16.4H and 3.11.4H of the Lake County Land Development Code. The procedure to be followed in this hearing will be: 1, members of the commission and or the board will disclose if they've had any ex parte communications. 2, the county staff will make their initial presentation. 3, the applicant may then make their presentation. 4, after that, any other persons either supporting or opposing the application may present evidence. 5, supporting and opposing witnesses may be questioned by the commission and the board. Once questioning is concluded, no further questioning is permitted unless granted by the chair. 6, the applicant will then present any rebuttal evidence. The parties and witnesses are asked not to submit redundant, irrelevant, or cumulative evidence. If someone has already made the point that you wish to say so, or wish to say, please just simply say so. The chair will also require that all comments be made to the planning commission and the board, and that there be no dialogue in between the applicant and members of the audience. At the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of the hearing, the chair will entertain a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, and the commission will discuss and weigh the evidence. Then there will be a motion to close the discussion phase of the joint public hearing. The Board of County Commissioners will then leave the meeting, and the chair of the planning commission will entertain a motion on the application. The motion may take the form of one of the following recommendations. 1, approve the application with no conditions. 2, approve the application with recommended conditions. 3, approve the application with newly identified conditions. Or 4, recommend denial of the application. The planning director shall make a record of any substantial discussion on the motion and include that in the record with the recommendation of the commission. The commission's recommendation will be in the form of a statement of motion. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the commission or to the form or substances of these proceedings? Okay, hearing none, I will now ask each planning commission member and then each county commissioner if you've had any ex parte communications, and if so, please disclose them now. Who do we have on? Steve Stevens?
None.
And that in case I have anybody else on there.
I don't think there's any other planning commissioner on here.
Okay.
Oh, there's Dave Clark Barrel, never mind.
Dave Clark Barrel, hi, welcome.
Thank you. None.
Okay, Jason Rufo,
None.
David Urich,
None.
Heather Lind, none. Commissioner Tharp,
None.
Commissioner Bullock,
None.
great. Staff will now make their presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've, staff has provided an extensive 32-page staff report that goes in great detail over all parts of the code review. And so what we're going to do today for staff's presentation is just gonna talk a little bit about the nature of the applications, the approval criteria, and then recommended conditions of an approval. If an approval is a desired outcome, some conditions that staff has developed to further support the code. Oh yeah, I should have let you do that too. Okay. So you're actually hearing two files concurrently. So the first file is file 2442, and it is the major subdivision preliminary plan. Reminding everyone that this has gone through a sketch plan approval, and it was conditionally approved at sketch. So now we're in the preliminary part of the process, where, as we always say, the rubber hits the road. This is the biggest lift of the developer to go through this code review, and this is where all of the great amount of the detail gets done. So that's the stage that we are in, reminding everyone that the final plat does not have a public hearing process associated with it. So this will be our last public hearing relative to these applications. So we are doing a major subdivision of 4 tracts A, B, C, and D. And typically this division of land would be done under a minor subdivision. However, the code only allows a minor subdivision every 25 years. And this property was subject to a minor subdivision within that time frame. So the only way for this to be considered is under a major subdivision. And so that is why it may seem a little odd that a 4-lot subdivision is typically a minor. But because this was previously subdivided under a minor, it now has to be done as a major. So the first action that we are doing here is to subdivide and create the 4 tracts. Followed concurrently with the re-subdivision then of track B, and this being, as you know in your documents, it's 2 different sheets so that we can see. So this is sheet 1 of the further re-subdivision PUD of track B. And here is, how do I hide this one more? Okay, so what we're looking at is 72 lot subdivision, 57 single family home lots, and 15 duplex lots, encompassing 10.42 acres, 2 parks, dedicated public trail that will be paved with a hard surface, detention areas, and open space tracks. So open space totaling 2.93 acres. So some of the public benefit that's being brought forward through this proposed development is the creation of 10 deed restricted units for locals earning up to 140% area median income, a paved public trail, the potential for additional connectivity, which we will talk about within the conditions that are being suggested, and a school fee at approximately $106,000, $107,000 in lieu of any type of school land dedication. And the reason that the applicant is seeking PUD zoning is differences in dimensional standards. This is just some examples, some renderings of some proposed what the housing will look like, the duplex units and the single family. So let's get right into the meat of the code, and that is the approval criteria. The approval criteria is the basis of your findings this evening, and they have been, again, talked about in a little greater detail in your staff report. So just gonna hit some of this highlights of what's in the staff report. So the first criteria is consistency with the comprehensive plan. So you'll see here, this is the northern panel of the future land use within the comprehensive plan. This is slated, I know it's kind of hard, let me see if I can get up right, I think it's right here with my eyes that far away, I think that's County Road 4 and that's Evergreen Drive right there. It is in this pinkish color of residential infill. And within the language of the comp plan, it considers density increases in exchange for an increase in public improvements, such as housing and trails and sidewalks, etc., which is talked about within this proposal. Also, one of the strategies outlined within the comprehensive plan can be found at goal 2.14 strategy D, which speaks about working with regional, state, federal housing entities and developers to expand the inventory of affordable housing in and near Leadville. One other item is that the thought of locating higher densities near the periphery of the city limits. And so this, again, is an area that this kind of densification is considered within the comprehensive plan and is in alignment with a strategy for us to realize more housing units meeting our recent housing needs assessment. The next criteria is it be consistent with the following chapters within the Land Development Code, and those are district regulations, use regulation, development standard, roadway standards, and floodplain damage prevention. And so again, this is all talked about in great depth within the staff report. Anything that any of these chapters and consistency with the code, there might be slight room for improvement with this proposal. Those have been incorporated into the suggested conditions of approval that I'm going to go over. Next is the spatial pattern, be efficient. So we don't wanna see things like premature extension of utilities. In this case, that is not the case. Also, the internal roads and connections, this is a pretty, a straightforward layout with just a linear design with a single cul-de-sac and 3 connections onto county roads. So all of those have been reviewed by Public Works, the county engineer, and Leadville Lake County Fire Rescue in their respective roles. And any outstanding issues, again, have been captured in the engineering review or information provided back to the developer. Suitability for the development. So this looks at all kinds of environmental hazards or any type of limitations of the property. So the developer hired CTL Thompson, who conducted a very in-depth environmental review of the property and was part of the submitted documents. It was also, per statute, required to go before the Colorado Geologic Survey to look at the suitability, overall suitability for the development. And other than asking for just some additional review in order to consider the design of foundations or to absolutely determine that there are no other features of the property or conditions that are creating any kind of subsidence in the area. Those are just some further analysis that has been suggested through that review. Compatibility with surrounding uses. So as many of you know, the surrounding area is generally a lot of subdivision platted uses. Westwoods, Mountain Gate, West Pines, and Mountain Pines subdivision are all within the surrounding area. The other lots that are created through that major subdivision, tracks A, C, and D, kind of a unique situation going on there that the current landowner has worked in conjunction with the developer to create a deed restriction, a covenant to go on the record for lots C and D and A to remain single-family home sites. So the underlying zoning in this area would allow, under urban residential, that's what the zoning is currently, those 3 lots will continue to be zoned as such. And the density allowed under the urban residential is 4.7 dwelling units per acre. So there is a thought that those lots could have been redeveloped or further subdivided. However, a covenant is being put on the record through this process that limits those 3 other tracts that are being created into single-family use only. The only way that there could be a modification is basically all 3 of those owners being in agreement to lift that covenant. But you may say in perpetuity, those will be single-family home sites, unless that could be considered at some future time. Adequate facilities, we do wanna make sure that water, sewer, the gas and electricity that's being all part of this development, fire protection, roads, schools and emergency services are all adequate to serve this development while also not putting undue strain on the existence level of service. And so it is dependent upon the development to be able to show that adequate facilities can be provided to the development. All of the conditions of sketch have to be met at preliminary or further they become ongoing conditions, which have to be addressed at the final plat before we would take this to the board for recommendation of approval. And lastly, PUD has a further requirement to it that isn't required of the major subdivision, and that is participation in some form to an affordable housing component. So this particular developer is proposing 11% of the development be deed restricted for locals in perpetuity. So The recommended conditions of approval that staff has identified in the staff report are the first being in coordination with the Leadville Lake County Regional Housing Authority. They will work in coordination with them to further develop and administer the deed restriction. So obviously, under this proposal, we won't be able to bring forth at this point perhaps the draft of the deed restriction and just all of those coordination pieces. So it will be conditioned that all of that work will be done before we actually do the final plat. And then following the CGS recommendations for approval, and that was a geophysical survey and engineered review of the excavations for lot specific recommendations. That was talked about in the staff report. The cash in lieu payment to the school district needs to be made. Follow the best management practices provided by Community Planning Development and Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment for on-site construction and grading, and that is specific to lead, arsenic, anything else that can be found in those soils, dust mitigation, and overlap grading, those kind of things. We wanna make sure that there are practices in place to mitigate any kind of further risk associated with disturbing the ground. And then satisfactorily address all of the county engineer review comments. We've put a new practice in place that seems to be causing greater efficiencies, that we are working more closely with our county engineer and the developer's engineer to go over review comments to hopefully cut down the amount of kind of back and forth between staff and allow the developer to get kind of going on the conditions. So they've already seen all of the preliminary plan review comments and have already been engaged between the developer engineer and the county's engineer on those. Follow the guidance from CPW regarding wildlife habitat. CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife are equally busy as we all are, and we did not get a referral letter from them, so we do want some type of comment from them regarding some of the endangered species in the area and just some guidance document. So we are asking that we work together, the developer and CPW, to make sure that we get that letter from them with some best practices in place. And then we're looking for an ask of the developer to provide crosswalks across Evergreen Drive and County Road 4. So what these will do will further connectivity with the trail work that's being done. Staff met with trail advocates, groups, and trail leaders, as well as Parks, Rec, and Open Space within the county departments for suggestions on how to increase connectivity with this opportunity of this development. And so that means striping along the pavement and some signage. We're not asking at this point for electrification of these signage. We have been talking that there's pending some grant possibilities and some other work that's being done with trail coordination groups and our pros department to look at further connectivity between the Mineral Belt, County Road 4, and eventually, hopefully, the junction behind at Turquoise Lake. So hopefully we'll continue to work, but this is a great opportunity as we talked about that public benefit of extending trail connectivity. Then while we are having this opportunity, again, looking at connectivity, we're asking for a 10-foot sidewalk easement along track A and B. And we can go back, I'll go back to the very first slide to just show you where that is. But basically, that's the southern side of Evergreen Drive. So we have this opportunity now to put that easement in place so that the eventual, again, looking at that, creating better walkability and connectivity in as we have opportunity and we're in discussion with development. And then, of course, like always, all statements that were made within the application and today within the public hearing by the developer and the applicant become binding on the project. And so that is all that staff has for you except for, I can quickly show you where we're talking about. So we're just talking about a 10-foot easement from right along here on the south side of, or the west side of Evergreen Drive. And those sidewalk opportunities are here that would connect the Westwood trail that was constructed with Westwoods, as well as take the subdivision across County Road 4 to the connecting trails that lie through Mountain Gate subdivision and Mountain Pine subdivision already. So it aids in just making sure that we are broadening our connections and our walkability and safe routes. As we all know, County Road 4 can get a little dicey. And eventually staff, this is a different topic, but eventually staff will probably be back talking to you about encouraging, maybe reducing the speed limit on County Road 4 to further that work along. So that is everything that staff has for you today, unless there are questions. Otherwise, whenever you are ready, I'm happy to introduce the developer and the applicant.
You know, I always have questions.
You
Do you want it
always do.
before or after the applicant makes his presentation?
I could ask at least one. In the very beginning, you said it was 72 homes, but I thought it was 86 or 85.
That's a great question. So 72 lots, but 15 of those are duplexes.
And they're double.
Oh, okay, maybe I missed that.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And then my only other quick question, the 10-foot easement for that sidewalk, is that consistent with across the street on Evergreen
Yes.
with the other sidewalk
The other
that's on it?
sidewalk, yes, then we would have sidewalks on both sides of Evergreen,
Okay. And then I'll wait, and then I'll have more questions.
great.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so our property owners right now are Jack and Cindy Saunders, and our applicant developer is Nick Costello. So I think that Nick is going to take it away for the proposal.
I can't believe I have to follow that.
I'm trying to figure out how to share here. I lost my meeting controller.
There we go.
So, Ann did such a good job, I'll try my best not to be redundant here. My name is Nick Costello, I'm the developer, working alongside my friends Jack and Cindy Saunders. Since you want to slide. So, just want to say up top, super grateful, feel like we had the A-team here. A lot of talented people have worked on this project. Our former planner, Melissa Kendrick, was hired away from us. So now I have to do this all by myself. Big thank you to Ann Schneider. She's been instrumental in helping us navigate this process. So, slide. All right. So I also wanted to mention, and Ann already touched on this, but essentially we haven't made any major deviations from the sketch plan. You're essentially looking at the same plat we had that was approved last July. You know, at its core, I think this project is about introducing new attainable and affordable housing into Leadville. You know, I think ultimately we want to build something that fosters a sense of pride in the community. So to answer Jason's question, it is a total of 87 new homes, 57 single family, 30 townhomes, 10 of which would be deed restricted for workforce housing. We are projecting close to $4 million will be paid in one-time fees and new property taxes over the next 10 years. Although at the rate Leadville Sand is raising their connection fees, you might be able to tap on another $1 million. Go ahead and slide. So location, as I'm sure you guys all know, we're in the northwest corner of Evergreen Drive and County Road 4, just about a mile west from downtown Leadville. It's currently a 43-acre parcel. Slide. So this is the major subdivision component. Jack and Cindy's primary residence resides on Tract A. Tract C and D will be deed restricted for one single family home. I'm not sure if Jack plans to deed restrict Tract A at this point in time, just as a clarification. And then Tract B is 16.5 acres, and that is where we are proposing, that is our PUD application to build 87 new homes. Go ahead. So I've got the site plan up here. Like Ann mentioned before, we've got a double loaded street, 2 points of ingress and egress. I wanted to say at the outset, Ann's team really emphasized the importance of interconnectivity. So we did our best to try to incorporate that into the design. We're gonna be building a half-mile all-weather trail along County Road 4. And that will extend into the existing trail network to the east of the property. So pedestrians, cyclists can travel safely into Leadville. There's also gonna be several north-south sidewalks that will essentially connect into the subdivision, as well as a sidewalk along the entire north side of Timber Ranch Drive. So I think from an accessibility standpoint, there's gonna be really a handful of spots to enter from County Road 4. Go ahead and slide. So here's the west side of what Tract B will look like when it's replatted. Another point of ingress egress on County Road 4. We've got the cul-de-sac on the far west side. There's gonna be a 35-foot access and utility easement. That'll be for the benefit of Tract C and D. And then that is our second park. The median lot size for this development is 5,400 square feet. In terms of parking, most, if not all, the single-family homes will have 4 spots, 2 driveway, 2 garage, and then the townhome units will have 3. Slide. So, community benefits, like Ann mentioned, 10 restricted units for households earning no more than 140% of the area median income. We have reviewed the guidelines and master deed restrictions from the Regional Housing Authority that I believe are going to apply to the county's affordable housing project known as 10-2. Our attorney took a look at them last week, didn't see any major issues. And then open space, of course, so we've got just under 3 acres. 2 new parks will be dedicated to the county but maintained by the HOA. And then we've got about a mile of combined sidewalks and trails. So here is a rendering of a single family home design. These will be 2-story IRC modular. We'll be building garages, porches, and decks on site. We really intend to stick with the fundamentals. You know, from the feedback that I get most often, people want 3 bedrooms, they want at least 2 baths, they want a front yard, a backyard, especially a backyard they can fence in for their dog, and then of course a fully finished garage. So we're gonna try to check all those boxes. And then also here's the townhome duplex design. I think one of the nifty things about it is the living spaces do not share any common walls. I think people will really appreciate that extra element of privacy. So really you're just sharing a pretty wide driveway. So unless your wife makes you sleep in the garage, you shouldn't hear much from your neighbor. So here's an excerpt from our landscape plan. I just wanted to quickly note that we'll be revegetating the entire neighborhood with a combination of evergreen and deciduous trees, a variety of different shrubs. The primary ground cover will be mulch. You know, the goal here is to create something that looks really nice, that's cohesive. So there will be reasonable CC&Rs put into place to ensure it stays that way. Slide. And then just quickly, so CTL Thompson, they did perform our environmental impact report, our geotech and our geohazard. They noted 0 concerns. The Colorado Geological Survey agree with their work and their recommendations. Wright Water Engineers worked on the drainage study. Our stormwater management plan will consist of grass line swales, pans, gutters, and inlets to route water to centralized detention ponds where we will release that water below historic rates. Kimberly Horn was kind enough to assist with the traffic study. Their conclusions were the development will be able to successfully integrate into the existing road network without the addition of new turning lanes. And then lastly, the wildfire mitigation plan. We worked with the State Forest Service as well as Leadville Lake County Fire and Rescue. We will be following their guidelines to create a defensible space around every structure. As we know, this area is a fire concern. Slide. Criteria again, and pretty much knocked it all out. Based on the comprehensive plan, this is in the residential infill area. It does further note and encourage a higher density in a variety of housing types, especially when public facilities can be utilized. And given that we have sewer, water, electric, gas, and what was the last one? Sewer, water, electric, gas, high-speed internet, you have to have that. I think we pretty much check all those boxes. In terms of compatibility, we are slightly less dense than the Westwood subdivision to the east. However, we are more dense than Mountain Gate to the south, and then a lot denser if you compare us to Mountain Pines Ranch and West Pines. Our engineered plans have been reviewed by the county engineer. I believe they do adhere to the land development code. I believe are designed to be efficient. As I stated previously, no red flags came from environmental. And then lastly, the PUD contributions, housing, trails, sidewalks, parks, are all part of our application. Conditions of approval, I won't be redundant and read those again. I just wanted to state that we believe them to be reasonable, and we will work with Ann's team to get them addressed ASAP. We really hope this project can come to fruition. Right now there's one house on 43 acres, and in 10 years there could be as many as 90, and I think that will ultimately be a benefit in adding to the supply here in Lake County. So anyway, that's it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask if any planning commission members and or county commissioners have some questions. We'll kind of go through those and then we will go to public comment.
Yeah, so I have questions unless anybody else wants to go. The renderings of the cars per unit, they don't seem consistent. Are those tandem garages?
Correct.
Okay, so they're not too wide, they're too deep?
Too deep,
Okay,
and the driveways will be between 35 and 40 feet.
long,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
So then, I believe the last time we met on the preliminary, we didn't have the report from the traffic? Is that correct? So do we have any information on that? Because,
Yes.
that's like a rough, you said 4 per single and then 3
Correct.
per
Yeah,
duplex?
so I think the code states 2 per unit. So I think that adds up to about 174, and we're gonna be well over 300
Okay,
total off-street
not
parking.
including what is on the street?
There'll be no street parking allowed, but there will be 5 overflow lots, parking spots at each park.
Okay. And then, I don't know if we can go back to the drawing where the snow where snow will be placed on the
Site
road?
plan,
Yeah, we can go to.
maybe around the middle.
And I think Steve had asked something about that at the preliminary, I just wanted to if you could refresh our memory on that.
Yeah, all those, you can see this in the storage.
Yeah, I know, that was a big one.
Which slide would you like? I'll let you answer,
Uh,
and then I can chime in too.
Yeah, I mean, this is the plat which has just the setbacks you made for that's good, the site plan is gonna show the snow storage areas.
Are you able
Do
to
you
just
have that?
point those
Back
out
to the
like where?
PDF, from my PDF.
Sorry, you know works. Where is it?
And then one more, I guess, Jason, this is an overall site plan, there's a
Okay.
separate sheet that has specifically the snow storage.
Okay,
But it is within the right of way, I believe.
It's at 10 feet on either side of the right of way,
Correct, 10 feet in addition to the right of way, thank you.
okay.
and then 7.5 on and then your detention areas.
Yeah, I think my point was just to say that the road itself doesn't take up the whole 50 feet, so when they just push the snow, some of it will probably still be in the right of way, I imagine.
And I would just offer that we reviewed that, and it's in the report, but CPE staff, the county engineer and public works, these roads are looking to be dedicated to the county. So we did work with Public Works to
Okay.
make sure that they accepted the snow management or the ability to manage the snow based on the snow storage and snow
Hey, if they could
management.
make that U-turn.
Because what I understood is like that detention area
Right.
would be used for snow storage as well. Yeah.
As well as the other one.
Yeah, there's 2 detention areas.
Okay, but the park wouldn't be used as snow storage, I would just hate for that to be,
I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, if there's, I'm not sure how usable the park will be in the middle of winter.
Sometimes it's more fun when there's am I allowed to speak right now?
You are allowed to speak right now.
Sometimes it's more fun when there is
Yeah.
snow piled up. It makes an actual park, right?
There you go.
I'm not making an argument, I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's where my kids like to go.
But that's separate from the second retention, right?
Yeah.
So you have 2 retention areas, you didn't need to probably use the park.
and
But-
then, so there will be this, walking path or bike path, or whatever. There is a path on the other side of the road as well.
Yeah, so it seems like they're gonna have one on each side.
We've got a sidewalk on the north side, and then that's actually a pan on the south side. So the sidewalks are here, going down,
Okay,
and then here on the entrances, you can't see the other one, and then the trail. And then we also peppered in a few also additional easements, and these can be used as trails coming into the development.
okay,
But you're saying the one on the south side of County Road 4 that's being planned, that'll stay too.
right, so I know there was a little bit of discussion about that before, but
Yeah,
so will this have OHV vehicles on it, like the one on the south side of County Road 4?
neither are supposed to be motorized.
Right,
Oh.
they're not supposed to be motorized.
Okay, cause there's a sign that's at County Road 4 and
Ranch,
Ranch.
and it says no motorized.
Says no motorized one direction, but not the other, so I was just curious. Okay, but if that's not the way it's supposed to be.
People always follow signs, in my experience.
I think they follow tracks personally, but, okay, I think those were my big questions, and then if there was any information on the study, cause we didn't see that the last time.
On the traffic study, yeah, and it was submitted as part of the
It was.
preliminary, it's probably 100 pages.
Okay, that's in the Google Docs
Yes.
folder as well,
Yep.
okay.
And there's a hard copy of it here, but the conclusion was, so I think the total trips are 848.
Yep.
And that no additional, construction of like turn lanes or anything like that needed to be done, but yeah, there's the Kinley Horn, traffic study, impact study.
Okay, and then the one crosswalk will be right at Evergreen and County Road 4, no other crosswalks, the one that goes to Virginia Avenue or anything like that, cause we're only seeing half of it, but towards the east,
To the east.
there's
Well,
another,
Virginia's right there.
Yeah, there's one.
oh, yeah, well, it wasn't on the other slide, she moved it, see?
Oh, I'm sorry, wait,
Oh.
okay, we'll go back to the other one.
Well, no, it's-
No, I was looking on the other side of the road, though, I don't know that
So-
that
so
connects.
this one connects directly across to Mountain Gate, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, but there won't be a side or a
The recommend,
crosswalk?
right, the recommendation when we met with the trail advocacy group and with pros was to do
Just the one.
the one across County Road 4 and the
At Evergreen.
and Evergreen.
Okay,
To keep there only being one point of children or people running across the road. But I imagine if like speed limits get changed and Road and Bridge says, hey, we need another one, they'll probably do that, but.
okay.
Nick, where's the access to the other single-family lots? There's two lots, right? Jackson
Jackson A with access to Evergreen, and then CC, do you wouldn't mind going back to the west? Just two down. It's right here, this 35-foot access and utility easement.
A, okay,
So they would share that?
so a single-family
They could,
homeowner
or
would have to
tractor
drive
could
down
get
the
to
street.
everything.
Right.
Yeah, or they would probably use this entrance.
Oh, I see, okay. And that applies to both tracks, okay?
On the fire mitigation, it sounds like the fire mitigation plan was approved and all that, which is great. I just wanted a little extra emphasis on that there's room to continue that conversation. I can't imagine that we're not all due some letters from insurance companies here real soon, taking away our homeowners insurance, so I know of people who currently cannot, the new buyers are not able to obtain homeowners insurance in subdivisions across the street.
Wow.
So I just, I guess wanna plant that seed that I think now that maybe the most expensive real estate in the country burned down, we might see some withdrawal of available homeowners insurance.
Wow.
In any of these areas near the trees, even Westwoods buyers that
That's
don't have
unfortunate to
trees
hear.
on their property are having a hard time with new buyers getting new
Okay.
homeowners policies. The existing people seem to be okay at the moment. I'm not sure if we're gonna get letters soon, but new buyers for sure are having a really hard time. So I just wanna make sure that any new developments as well as old developments with HOAs are gonna really have to start working together to figure out if there's additional measures we have to take in order to become insured.
Sure.
And I don't really know the ins and outs of that, but I just wanted to point on that I think it's a really big problem that we may not know is bigger than it is right now, so. And the other thing I had a question on, just cause I did see somebody bring it up and it was something that popped in my brain too, just because once Mountain Gate started doing some road stuff, we really saw those, I mean, they're cute little daisies, but those noxious weeds really like went crazy over there. So I didn't know if that actually got put together in a plan.
We do have
I
a
didn't
noxious
see-
weed
okay,
plan. Yeah.
okay, cool. Those were the only two things I really highlighted.
So have there been, there are homeowners in Westwoods that haven't been able to find anybody to insure?
We have finally found somebody, at least for now, but at a very, very high rate for our last fire.
Okay, wow. Yeah, no, it's a joke. I actually grew up in a neighborhood in San Diego that 70% of it burned down in 2003, so
Yeah.
I've seen it. We have friends in the Palisades fire that just lost their houses, so, yeah.
It's
Nick,
very
do you
big.
have a fireproof or fire-resistant design in mind, or?
The current design does check, I think, 80% of the boxes in the county, the state forest services recommendations, including roof material.
Venting, roof venting, or non-vented roof?
Currently, it's up in the air, we've got vented soffits, and then an asphalt architectural shingle roofs.
That's how most fire starts, through the vents,
Right,
through the gable vents or through the soffit vents.
right. I think one benefit though is that we're 2 stories, so our soffits are over 20 feet in the air, so that might make a difference.
Is there
Certainly.
insurance regulations regarding fire resistant construction or?
They have a rating system that they use that I haven't been able to make rhyme or reason for. I mean, I remember like 8 years ago, we had this house all by it. I mean, it's not by itself, obviously, in downtown Leadville, but it was like, we randomly had a house in the middle of West 7th Street for some reason was on their ranking list and we couldn't get insurance on it because of wildfire, but like everything else in town was fine. So, I don't really know, but I think it would be great if we could, I mean, the county probably needs to start talking with perhaps like some homeowners insurance companies. I don't know if like anybody over at State Farm or, you know, farmers or any of those guys locally would be willing to like put us in touch with the correct people that would tell us that. Like, what can we be doing to make sure we're setting these up for success? But I don't know enough about how they rank them. I mean, cause Westwood's made no sense to me. I mean, it finally has a fire hydrant and it itself took all the trees out. The subdivision across the street obviously all has trees, but it itself doesn't have them, but it was, yeah. So it's been interesting to see the changes this last year.
I have a couple questions. Is there any consideration in the design or the HOA rules or anything that will address dark skies or light pollution? I mean, this is a pretty dense chunk of houses that's in a pretty dark area where people generally enjoy to be able to see all the constellations and such. You've got Four Seasons and Lodestone right there to the north. You've got your development down there. So I just was wondering, I hadn't heard anything mentioned about that at all.
Can I take that?
Sure.
It will be dark skies compliant, every light will be shielded. I was gonna actually broach with you guys and get your input in regards to streetlights that would be shielded. I know there's pros and cons to that. I've stayed up in the rail yard before, it gets awfully dark at night. If you wanna walk your dog, it seems, you know, it's like pitch black. So I'd be open to installing streetlights unless the county had a firm opinion of, you know, avoiding that, in which case we would go without.
Staff would just recommend that if, that to the best of our knowledge, I think the last area that we had streetlights was under Sangre de Cristo, and they were coming up with new designs for dark sky compliant streetlights. But anything, our code requires dark sky compliancy with any kind of lighting outside, so the CCNRs do have that, and it was broached in the applicant's application that that very thing, that potentially there wouldn't be any streetlights, but if they are indeed installed, they would have to be in some kind of specification that's dark sky compliant.
Yeah, the most ideal thing I've seen, which obviously doesn't bode well unless you're maintaining it for snow, is like this high off the ground on the side, along this, like every once in a while on a sidewalk. Those have done the best because then they're not shining in anybody's windows, even if they are downward facing, as far as bedroom windows and things. So those have been the most popular design, but obviously that requires some putting them in a space where the snow will be removed in front of it.
Is there any neighborhoods that have those that we can check out for reference, think of?
Can't think of
Not
any.
locally.
If you do, shoot
If
me
I
an
do,
email.
yeah, I'll let you know.
Freight's got small, like short
Little ones.
that are like act as though it's a light post. This is a street sign, street light, but they're like half of the height and they're downward facing. So the snow removal is awesome and it gives you a little bit broader.
I can attest, I've stayed there 20 times, I just checked in a couple hours ago.
I like those street lights. I think they were annoying to build, but
Yeah.
they do their job.
David, you had a couple questions.
Yes, first a comment, I was really impressed with the county's engineer review.
Mhm.
They got very detailed and,
Yes, they are.
yeah, it was really good.
We had a different word for it.
I bet you did.
I saw in the staff report that you're gonna build in phases,
Correct.
and are the 11 residences that are gonna be lower cost, are they scattered throughout each of the phases, or are they grouped together in one of the
They'll be
phases?
scattered out.
Okay.
I believe we're gonna designate lots 40, 44, 52, 60, and 66. And just keep in mind that the far east side, the north starts at 1 and the south starts at 72. So the south side counts backwards because the lots are numbered and they come back. I don't anticipate we'll be able to build any in the first 2 years because the upfront infrastructure costs are considerable. Excel gave us a major curveball a couple weeks ago. We've been working with them for months to get costs. They think it's appropriate for us to upgrade their entire distribution system back to 6 and McWethy to 3-phase, even though it's right across the street at Westwoods. Gas is also across the street to the east, but they think it's appropriate for us to tap into the west side, which is a half mile. So it's gonna be a lot. So it's, yeah, so, and it's honestly, it's threatening our numbers honestly at this point, so we're working through that right now.
Solar and propane.
Yeah, so easy. Any other questions?
That was it.
You? Okay. Any other county commissioners or planning commission members have questions before I go to public comment? And we'll have an opportunity again after, but. Okay, is there a little?
Oh, wait, I did have one,
Yeah, go for it.
you said 35 feet on the easement or the road back to C and D?
Yep.
Was that, I thought it was gonna be 50, or there was talk about that?
There was talk about it being 50 if they were ever gonna be developed in the future, but given that they'll be deed restricted for one single family
Got it,
home,
okay,
we thought 35 feet would be more appropriate to, and then give the rest of that to the park.
okay. But then they still have to have a way for a turnout or something for a fire engine to make that get back out of there.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be part of their individual site plans, just
Right, okay.
basically any driveway, like Jack's driveway, for instance, on Evergreen Drive has a turnabout.
Right, okay.
Okay. I'm gonna run through the yeses on here, but if anybody said no and chooses to change their mind, they can raise their hand after. I have Betsy.
My name's Betsy Kalmeyer. Kind of, the picture you showed of the single family home was like almost by itself. Can you tell me how much distance it is between most of it?
Sure, the single family lots are 50 feet wide, and the structure itself is, with the garage, is 29 feet. So you've got roughly 20 feet between each, yeah.
Okay, and then just real quick, just for matter of the way we have to run this is, your comments and questions have to be directed to us,
Oh,
and then,
I'm sorry.
and then he can go back and readdress them, yeah,
I
go
made
ahead.
that mistake last time. I
Yeah, it's like,
apologize.
it's okay.
Okay,
It's confusing, I know.
with all due respect, Cindy and Jack, but I run down that road all the time. I sometimes bike down County Road 4, so my main concern is with the density. I just feel aesthetically it doesn't fit in. I would be concerned if I had a property near there, that the property value would significantly go down. The crowding on County Road 4, access to County Road 4, the traffic on County Road 4 going to Turquoise Lake, taking RVs, taking trailers. So I'm kind of concerned about just the safety on the road and the access to the road. Because I do believe Westwood hasn't closed their construction road yet, and it doesn't have a stop sign on it. And I was told that's gonna be closed down, that only access would be through Evergreen Road, so. But I think most important that was brought up was the fire danger. I feel like if somebody had a candle burn or a grill light up on their deck, and with our winds and the climate change, I think the whole thing could get wiped out. Then it would continue on to Westwood and then probably to Leadville. So my most concern is that because it's so dense, it doesn't really fit in, and then the fire safety. I think if there's a wind, and if you have a house that's on the west side of that property or the development, it would just spread throughout the development very quickly before it could even be suppressed, so, thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Jack, you have a question mark still?
I'll pass, thank you.
Okay. And I think that's all. Were there any other, and if you were on, yeah, Eric Lane, I see you.
About the parking, did I understand correctly that there are 7 parking places in the duplexes?
7 parking spots in the duplexes. Well, if you wanna address comments and questions, then we can get them answered. But you'll just need to run through your comments and questions.
Okay, that was the question.
Is that?
Right, so how we need to do this is have you ask your questions all in one, and then we can get them addressed as a response.
Okay. Number of parking places for duplexes, odd number of places. It looks from the picture like half of the third of the odd number place goes with one duplex and half goes with the other. Possibly guaranteed disputes between neighbors. I thought where are the overflow parking places? Did those sound like clear questions?
Yes, they are. Is that, those are the ones? Okay. So what we're gonna do is go through all of the questions of any public comment, and then the applicant can come back and respond to those things. Do we have any other public who have any questions or comments, that are on Zoom? And I don't know if we need the arrow button to see if anybody is. Okay, Nick, if you wanna address those couple questions.
Sure, I'll start with the parking, the townhomes. The townhome driveway will be approximately 24 feet wide and 40 feet deep. So each owner will have 2 parking spots. I don't anticipate them warring over the center of the driveway as long as they line up with the garage. I think several duplexes do that. If we see an issue, I guess we can put like a rock divider or something between them. And then 1 spot in the garage. So to answer your question, a total of 6 spots for the duplex.
3 each, yeah.
3 each. The overflow parking, 5 spots at each park. There will be no on-street parking.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just want to address your concerns to density.
But Nick, you still have to address us.
Sorry. Trying to be respectful.
I know, and it always feels that way, but then this is when it's like.
Yeah, got it. So in terms of density, like I mentioned, we actually are less dense than Westwoods across the street. I believe their average lot size is below 4,000 square feet. Our median lot size is 5,400 square feet. And, based on the comprehensive plan, it does encourage, in fact, it even suggests that new districts should be created between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet. And I believe the intention behind that is to decrease per unit land costs. As I hinted before, the infrastructure is extremely expensive. So if you don't get higher density, then you're just building houses for millionaires, essentially. To the fire concerns, that's something we take really seriously. And we do intend to apply to become a fire-wise community, and that has a lot of strict points that you have to actually come out and inspect the community and make sure you're doing each and everything in order to obtain that certification.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Planning commission members?
Do you have an estimated retail price for the market rate units or a square footage estimate?
For square footage or price?
Whichever you want.
So the square footage for the townhomes will be roughly 1,575 square feet. And then the single families will start at 1,820 and go up to 2,184. And that'll be a 4-bed, 3-bath configuration. Hard to say what the prices will be because you don't know when the infrastructure will be done and we actually go to market and what interest rates will be at that point in time. But I can say that with the workforce housing, currently, those would sell, I mean, I think the townhomes right now would probably sell in the high 500s. And as you guys know, the workforce housing is not priced on market forces, it's priced on the area median income and how many bedrooms. And so, those units as of now would sell for about $200,000 below market.
Yeah, it's gonna be based on whatever the current 140% of AMI, I think is what you have on that.
Which I believe is what.
So whatever that AMI is at the time that they come to market, it'll have to be what that AMI can qualify for.
Here's one more thought to go with that, because I was looking at, I stumbled on the 10-2 website for the county affordable housing project. I didn't see, are there garages on that? There are no garages. I think the 3 bedrooms top out at about 1,300 square feet or something like that. So in Timber Ranch, you're gonna get 300 more square feet and a garage and a front yard and a backyard, and it's gonna sell for the same price. So, hence the name lottery, I guess.
Yeah.
Those will happen, you're suspecting maybe 2 years into,
Yeah, probably in year 3, not in the first 2 years.
or yeah, after the first,
Yeah.
okay.
Alright, any other questions?
How long will it be after the final phase is done? How long?
To build out the whole thing?
Yeah.
Probably about 10 years.
Alright, well, I can entertain a motion to close the public hearing. So,
Are we allowed to move? Since it's joint, or are we technically leaving and then coming back?
you are
to
not,
it?
yeah, it's our
It's
hearing
just the
still,
planning
you get,
commissioner.
I'll make a
But you
motion
are
to
gonna-
close the public hearing portion of the session.
wait a second,
Second,
all in favor? Alright,
I,
great. Alright, county commissioners, you may exit while we do this, and do you want us to just text you when we're ready for sign code, next one on the agenda? You wanna be
Sure,
here
I'll
for
just
sign
be
code
over here.
amendment? Okay.
Thanks, Nate.
Thank you.
Yeah, so from here, I think and I know, Betsy left, but, it had already gone through that sketch plan initial phase of deciding whether or not this density was appropriate and all of those things, so that kind of is off our table tonight. It's really if they've taken the sketch plan to preliminary plat as intended and meet the new criteria moving forward. Yeah, my biggest concern is just the fire, which sounds like it's theirs as well. But I personally feel like they've done a good job with the application. Hope they can make it all come together. Anybody have any other comments or motions? Yep.
can we have you put up the list of conditions?
Sure.
Because that might be where we could add something about fire, if it's
Yeah,
not
I
already
think it's
there.
in here, let's see,
Thought
so
it
she
was.
has hers are they're not the full ones, they're in here, let me pull it up here.
Well, and I know we talked about there wouldn't be clear cutting.
Right.
Right, and then I don't think we talked about the distance of the homes on the north side to the other tracks. If there's any kind of wildfire mitigation, distance wise,
So it would
if it said
hold
anything in
your
there.
attention to the wildfire hazard plan that was created by the Colorado State Forest Service and the fire department and the wildfire mitigation plan. Because it's all kind of working in coordination with how they sited their houses. And so I just wanna pull up the wildfire biz plan for some consideration on so let's just talk about that a little bit and just
So the fire protection and wildfire hazard plan was based on input and recommendation by lead forester Andy Lurch of the Colorado State Forest Service and Steve Boyle, the fire marshal. So they did help with this. A state-sponsored fuel treatment and tree thinning project was completed on the 43-acre parcel located at 245 by Terra Firma, which you talked about. And you've probably seen that they went through and did that. Let's see, most, if not all of the lodgepole pines within the right-of-way and building envelopes on track B will be removed. Our goal is to save as many trees as possible in the open space areas and along the perimeter of the development, in the backyards of most lots. They will prune limbs and low branches on an as-needed basis to help prevent vertical wildfire spread, like we were talking about before. All homes will be revegetated with a mix of native trees, plants, and shrubs. And there is some more discussion in the landscape plan about this. We've been advised that Timber Ranch will most likely be given an ISO rating of 3. So that kind of, There are 2 existing fire hydrants along the county road 4. The current plans call for the addition of 5 new fire hydrants on Timber Ranch Drive, and the development will feature proper signage on roads and addressing on all homes. After the phase 1 improvements are completed and buyers begin to move into their new homes, the Timber Ranch HOA will apply to become a recognized fire-wise community. By submitting the application in Exhibit B, the certification can also potentially benefit homeowners in the form of lower insurance rates. And the following checklists were pulled directly from the State Forest Service publication on ignition zone. So there is a checklist that is incorporated into the CCRs, and those are maintaining defensible space, and where to store firewood, and driveways, and slash management, structural integrity, all roofs to feature asphalt shingles with Class A fire rating, remove all leaves, needles, and other debris from all decks, roofs, and gutters.
And just to clarify, you're reading
And then-
covenants.
This is their fire report, so some of these things are incorporated into the CCNRs.
Got it.
But this is their plan. Use non-combustible fencing or gates at least within 5 feet of the home, and we always wanna maintain that 5-foot setback. Otherwise, we're doing fire-rated construction from the property line.
Right.
So their zoning
So it,
setbacks.
for some reason I thought I read, and I don't know where, cause there's so many pages, but for some reason I read somewhere that they'll work towards those recommendations, but it wasn't like the firm, like, we're gonna comply with these regulations, and it's not that I need that necessarily, but I guess in a lot of ways, I would be surprised if they can save trees on lots that they're building on. I think they're right in that mostly they're gonna have to save trees in the parks or whatever, because I just don't know how they'll even fit them in the backyard, but, and the insurance companies these days may not even let them keep them in the backyard. So there's a piece of me that thinks it's gonna work out itself, but,
And they're maintaining 7.5 feet on their side setbacks from the property line.
Yeah.
So, and front setbacks are 10 feet, rear vary from 10 to 25 feet depending on, like the south side rear are those further, are 25 feet, the west rears are 10, and the north are 15. But front are 10 and sides are 7.5. And they're building, to create their building envelopes.
okay. Thank you. The conditions that we have right now, are recommended by staff, is the developer collaborates, with LLC RHA, which I can't remember who that is.
That's that regional housing.
Regional Housing Authority, and where necessary, Lake County CBD to further develop and administer the deed restriction. And this
That's
will ensure,
by the final plat.
Yes,
if we
would,
approve this is their condition for approval.
all of they
Okay.
would
Is that
have
these
to,
would have to happen in order for final plat to be approved.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
and there's my written copy of like them in a little more detail.
The actual
So
restrictions.
they start there on this.
This will ensure that 10 dedicated units remain affordable and available to the local workforce earning up to 140%. Number 2, the developer will be responsible for following the CGS recommendations for approval. The 3, cash in lieu of school land dedication will be due and payable prior to the recordation of final plat. 4, the developer will follow the best management practices provided by CPD and CDPHE for all on-site construction and grading. 5, the county engineer's list concerning the preliminary plat, preliminary plans, drainage report, construction schedule, and the narrative shall be addressed and revised as necessary, subject to the county engineer review and approval. And 6, the developer will obtain a letter from CPW regarding wildlife habitat and consider those recommendations. 7, the developer will provide crosswalks across Evergreen Drive and County Road 4 in coordination with the proposed trail connectivity. The crosswalk will consist of striping and pedestrian crosswalks, signage to be coordinated with Public Works and pros. 8, the 10-foot sidewalk easement is required on the west side of Evergreen Drive for the length of the property, which includes tract A. And 9, all statements made by the applicant are considered conditions of approval.
So yeah, there's nothing within there that really speaks to asking for anything specific to fire mitigation beyond the planning that they've done.
I mean, it seems like it's in their application now.
It isn't,
It
it
seems
is
like
part
it
of their
covers-
application, so.
It's covered in what they already have in there.
The review comments that were included in the staff report indicate that there wasn't any more that was requested of the developer.
Correct. The requirement is that you create a fire mitigation plan, a hazard plan, prepared by a qualified professional. And so we deem it sufficient that they work with the Colorado Forest Service and the fire marshal in developing the plan to best address. So the intent of the code was that not only do they create it, but they work with a fire professional, so that they did have those to help them design and review the plan.
So does that mean they have like a specific number of hydrants per housing units or
So
something
the
like
fire,
that?
so the fire department determines.
Determines that, okay, and so that'll be followed.
And yeah, so
Yeah,
there's
okay.
5 additional hydrants.
And they're looping all the wire line, water lines, and so upgrading.
Right.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Any other comments or questions?
I don't know.
I think you need to open that back up again, sorry. Just in case, I have Dave and Steve up there. Okay. Okay. You're all set?
I move that the planning commission recommend conditional approval to the Board of County Commissioners of file number 24-23.
No, it should be file
Or-
24-42 and 43.
Oh, this is the old one. That's why.
How about you read this?
Files number 24-42 and 43. The Timber Ranch Major Subdivision Preliminary Plan and PUD Preliminary Plan located west of the city of Leadville on track 3-B of the Saunders subdivision. Exemption AKA 245 Evergreen Drive containing 43.08 acres with the following conditions. 1, the developer will collaborate with the LLCRHA and where necessary, Lake County CPD to further develop and administer the deed restriction. This will ensure that the 10 dedicated units remain affordable and available to the local workforce, earning up to 140% of the area median income, or the AMI. Number 2, the developer will be responsible for following the CGS recommendations for approval. Number 3, the cash in lieu of school land dedication shall be due and payable prior to recordation of the final plat. Number 4, the developer will follow the best management practices provided by CPD and CDPHE for all on-site construction and grading. Number 5, the county engineer's list concerning the preliminary plat, preliminary plans, drainage report, construction schedule, and the narrative shall be addressed and revised as necessary, subject to county engineer review and approval. Number 6, the developer will obtain a letter from CPW regarding wildlife habitat and consider recommendations. Number 7, The developer will provide crosswalks across Evergreen Drive and County Road 4 in coordination with the proposed trail connectivity. The crosswalk will consist of striping and pedestrian crosswalk signage to be coordinated with Public Works and Pros. Number 8, a 10-foot sidewalk easement is required on the west side of Evergreen Drive for the length of the property, which includes track A. Number 9, all statements made by the applicant in his application and in hearing are considered as conditions of approval unless modified by other conditions of approval. And make the findings that all approval criteria of section 3.16.4H and section 3.11.4H have been met as presented in the staff report dated February 10, 2025.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Really quick, I have a quick clarifying question. There was a quick, clarification on the deed restriction on the single-family residence for which tracks, is that correct?
So yes, and because I think that the deed restriction, suggests that they reflects to as the benefit, the what are the two references? The benefited parcels and the,
Subservient.
yeah, something. So tract A is the decision maker in whether or not C and D could ever be anything, than a single family use. And so there was a bit of an assumption on the part of staff that since there is a single family use on tract A, that all three of them would remain that tract A would remain in its single family configuration. But I would say that the legal document that was coming in was a covenant for C and D. So thank you
I just wanted to make
clarifying
sure we
that.
didn't have to change anything. Okay.
No, that doesn't change anything. So what it really spoke to was the access, as we were concerned about access and further densification of C and D.
Yeah, getting
Then
back there with fire and stuff, right?
Right, so track A, it was just a bit of an assumption on staff's part that since that was the use now that it may remain, but C and D are the two lots that have the deed restriction.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion?
None.
Okay, good. I'm gonna do roll call vote then. Steve Stevens,
Hey.
DCB.
Aye.
Jason Maruko,
Aye.
David Jurich,
Aye.
Heather Lind, aye. Motion carries. So now from here, our recommendation will go to the county commissioners and they will hear that recommendation and vote on that at their
Tuesday meeting next week.
Tuesday meeting next week.
At what time?
And the meeting begins at 11. I don't know where we'll be placed on the agenda. We have been asking for these kind of decisions to come towards the front of the agenda so that applicants don't have to kind of wait for a very long agenda. So we do make that request, but we'll see where it is on the agenda.
Thank you, everybody who participated, and you're welcome to hear us talk about signs if you'd like to stay.
Signs, all
But
right.
we'll go ahead and get the commissioners back in here for a signs conversation.
Yeah. And I'll switch over and let Mason take the hot
I don't
seat.
sign in. That's good to know.
No, not anymore.
I keep forgetting my water bottle.
I'm Jason.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Dave.
Really got to shake your hand.
Thrown in and catch on as I can.
Yeah,
That's what I did.
I'm still catching on, don't worry.
Would it be okay if I followed up with you about the home insurance? Cause I'd like to have a,
Yeah, I mean,
cause
that's
that's
what
the
we're trying to
first I've
figure
heard
out
of an
too.
all rate rejection. Like I've heard it's tougher to
New
get.
buyers are having a really hard time getting
That's a
it.
big thing.
It
Can't
is.
get insurance and you're dead in the water.
I get it, yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a call with our homeowners insurance agent, State Farm,
Yeah,
I think Wednesday. So I'm just gonna ask if she's aware about it.
So I have USAA and they automatically provide a separate contracted service of some team during a wildfire incident to deploy to try and protect our home. I'm sure I'm paying for it, but I it looks fun, so
Alright, Melissa, I'm gonna put it right square in your hands, here we are, talk about
Great.
signs.
All right, well, thank you. I know we'll move through this pretty quickly, and this is a reminder of where we are, that we're in a moratorium for signage right now until March 19th, when we need to have adopted the new regulations. So, we've had one study session in January.
Would you mind just like, can't shut it all away, but, you know.
And then we have a public hearing scheduled for February 24th, which is a couple of weeks away from today, to actually adopt, or get a recommendation to adopt the new regulations. So that's where we are, and so we can go forward here. At the end of the last study session, and it was great that the 3 new board members, it was the night before you got sworn in, but you were here, and let's go team. And so we don't have to go back, I don't think, if you guys have questions and things, and even offline, we can talk about that, if there are things about the draft signage you wanna know about. But what we didn't touch on were electronic signs, drive-throughs, and gas station signs. So, we can go to the next one. What I did is I went back to the Buena Vista Code, the Platteville Code, and the Breckenridge Code to be consistent, to look at how they were handling these. And so in terms of the electronic message boards, what they're looking at are signs that are similar to their monument signs. They do use and recommend, and a couple of the codes do use dimmers. And so we can limit brightness at night, or in off hours, or whatever that needs to look like. So they're allowed where monument signs are allowed and not other places. And that they also are regulated by how long, how quickly, so they can't just be flashing through just continuously. They need to hold at least for a few seconds. So that's how Buena Vista is managing their signs. They had the most to say about this. And then Platteville, they looked at a brightness of 0.3 foot candles at dusk to dawn. That kind of limits the intensity. So again, here's another code that's really trying to do the same thing. And their transitions, how quickly can these signs switch, is a little bit faster than Buena Vista. And Breckenridge didn't really, they define what electronic sign is, not so much other details related to it. I believe what they're doing is using their commercial signs, which you can see the calculation of how big they can be related to that. So they didn't go into more detail on that. I actually haven't asked them more if there's something that's not transparent in their code. So I put a summary here, but since there's more information, thinking that limiting size, addressing brightness, particularly after hours, would be pretty reasonable minimums to look at when we're looking at electronic signs. So, thoughts?
I still hate them, but.
Well, one question, I know in one of one meeting I attended, the issue of sandwich board signs came up. We're silent on that, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
These are
code right
permanent
now,
Please be
right?
silent about it.
Yeah,
These are permanent signs, yeah.
okay.
Mhm. I mean,
What's-
it doesn't mean we can't if you
Oh.
want to and you
No,
wanna
No, we
worry
don't
about
want
it.
to.
I understand that.
Well, luckily, we don't have to deal with it as much in the county
Right.
as the city does, but yeah.
Did we ever reach out to any sign making companies about how is there an industry standard for brightness? Like I see this 0.3 foot candles,
Mhm.
and that's,
Similar
Yeah, and-
lumens,
yeah,
different
One
measures.
And one of the other codes looked at 300 nits, and so I looked up what 300 nits means.
What does that mean?
NITS, don't ask me to explain what that means,
Oh.
but it's really like a candela, which doesn't help a lot either by a square meter. But what that is equivalent of is actually probably our screens on our computers. So 300 nits is not, that doesn't seem onerous in terms of, and that was looking again at sort of that overnight piece, which I think is where it's difficult.
And but this we're talking about isn't like a lighting up a sign, this is electronic signs, as in
Electronic,
like
yeah,
Backlit,
that board,
or the
It's
LED
every
facing
Saturday
outwards.
sign or
right, these are electronic
signs you
signs
see
we're
in
talking
Vegas.
about.
Yeah, I think to your point, Andy, just because there's a lot of different approaches to the degree of illumination, that it seems like getting a manufacturer's specification or perspective on kind of industry standard for you know, perspective might be good, just because all of the codes kind of reference it under a different measure,
Mhm.
so.
Well, another one might be CDOT. I mean, they have variable message signs and temporary traffic control signage, very different functions.
And they're silent on this, even though we're on a highway.
They were on the Saturday sign, so the only time that I would say that they're silent about, it's more about, the last time that I worked with CDOT, there were two different issues. One was Saturdays and one was, something down at the junction of 82 and 24. And so it was all about whether or not it had any kind of negative impact to traffic. And I don't remember at that time having a measurement, but that's been some years ago. Like Saturdays, when we referred Saturdays, digital sign to them, we anticipated that CDOT would have a big reaction, but they didn't, which was really surprising at the time, because we were trying to kind of get.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering though is like, if that sign was a monument sign at the entrance of Saturdays, they might have. And I guess I'm just wondering if they have standards that we need to be making sure
That were consistent.
we're consistent with, because otherwise you guys are gonna waste a whole lot of time putting forward people's sign plans and then CDOT saying no.
Very good point.
We can look that up.
Just in case they're like, it has to be this far away and
Yeah, we
maybe they have their own lumens or, you know.
I think it's a distance out of the right of way that they don't, so it just depends, but if it's within CDOT's right of way, they'll have a lot of ideas about that, but if it's outside the right of way, then
They may not
that in my
have.
experience, they've been a little less regulatory.
Yeah.
you can get blinded by all the other cars on the road, but we can't make signs very bright.
Okay, well, back to your question about electronic signs, let's focus on just electronic signs right now.
Right. Right,
Um,
these are good questions that we can get answers for that might help with some of
with the
that.
whole big thing, big picture.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I still really don't know why we need them, but it seems like everybody else has addressed them in a way that they must be needed, so I'm a really bad person to just keep speaking about electronic signage, I'd rather just say they're not allowed.
So yeah, the only other thing on, and maybe
But I guess
missed-
electronic signage would be gas station signs.
Bank signs, all of them.
Yeah, I suppose.
yeah, like the number for the
The
price of the
temperature,
time, price.
well, I guess it's important to know that.
So does this include the window signs, like if there's like an open or closed sign, you know, those ones are,
Neon.
No,
They're not
No, I
permanent.
think
Those
we're,
aren't permanent. We're
that's
just
more of a
talking about-
window sign.
okay, so these are
Yeah.
just for, okay,
Monuments.
No more Taco Bell signs.
well, I don't think that can be in the code, but.
We can't work retroactively, unfortunately,
Okay, so, but I agree with what you said, like these things just being, well, obviously, I don't think we should be more lenient than any of these. My own opinion, anybody else have an opinion on why these are
I think
important?
maybe that transition duration is a matter of speed.
I think it would also maybe reduce the effect of flashing if it was rotating too quickly, so like from a bright something to a less bright, it might look like flickering or flashing.
Yeah, I definitely think less bright and slower,
Yeah.
like they're not animated, they're
3
not,
seconds is pretty quick.
is not animated something we have to put in there, that like the
They have
picture
that-
itself isn't doing
They have that
fireworks?
in one of them, right, like it can't have transitions. It can't have transitional animation, like fade in, fade out, and it can't be moving, it has to be a static
Yeah, I
sign,
like that.
right, I liked that too.
Our planning commissioners that are on Zoom, we can't see you really when we're in this mode, so please just interrupt us anytime you want to participate.
Steve, Heather, and I agree with you. I don't know that we need to be any more stringent or even less stringent than some of our other similar type communities. I mean, I think we ought to, as much as possible, sort of mimic the communities we think are the best.
Always is that don't reinvent the wheel kind of idea.
The
Yeah,
problem
so it was
is-
Buena Vista that had that one, I think on your slide maybe before.
I liked Buena Vista
Can go
coding
back.
in general.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't, is you can see that they, in Buena Vista, did they say 16 square feet in addition to any freestanding monument sign?
Yeah.
You know, Platteville actually, I think, only allows it to be up to 50% of what the monument sign
Yeah.
area can be. So that's a little bit more restrictive, and ours is up to 60 square feet, so it's a little bit smaller. So I don't know if that's like size-wise, am I making sense?
Yes, I like that.
The 50%
The
of what our
50%.
maximum allowed is.
But then their
But this is way
static messages and stuff.
Mhm.
Well, this is 16 feet out of 76
76.
is a lot smaller than 50% of the total.
Mhm.
So this would be.
Oh, that would be more.
They allow a bigger sign, but a smaller area of the sign.
Right. There's something to be said for that.
I
So
do.
we're trying to avoid billboard size signs,
Sure.
and then
Yeah, there was the thought, Dave, that, this time of wayfinding signage isn't always the way that people locate things
Right,
anymore, right?
yeah.
And so do we have to have excessive advertising?
Especially when we're doing like dark skies, to me, like, electronic message boards aren't very, it's just, yeah, it's just like adding to the noise kinda,
And there are no casinos here.
but it is nice to see what the
Yes.
temperature is, so,
They're taking
but that can be
Santi, like
fairly
Vegas,
small.
literally.
any signs anymore.
Yeah.
So-
They're certainly not,
Yeah, I guess,
we're not mandated to have these, to your point.
right. Yeah, I suppose my feedback would be that we're as stringent as BB. Because it seems like they have the most, although I don't know if because it says static messages, like, does that mean for sure, like, just as long as like the sign itself can be animated, or
Right.
whatever is on
I
it,
think it's a static image, is what that's referring to.
yeah.
It says one thing, and then a few seconds later it says the next thing.
Yeah.
And then it does.
Yeah, just as long as like, when it's showing one thing, that thing isn't
Moving.
Yeah, right.
moving, and
That's
so I'm
the
assuming the static
Yeah,
piece
we can
takes
make
care of that, but,
Mhm.
Anybody else feel differently? No?
I liked not having the transition animation too.
Yeah.
So it flashes from one thing to the next thing. It's not like zooming in or like, star exploding to the next thing. Like that cuts down on the
Slide
animation too.
transitions or
Right, yeah.
scrolling or.
All of the
Classic
8
PowerPoint.
seconds, to your point, point,
Yeah, 8 seconds is
a little slower.
Yeah, it's
Have you had anybody want
You're a bull
or
rider.
want to have a sign that you've told them no until we get this resolved? Is there a big
We have
demand?
one sign, precedes me, of somebody who's waiting our mobile home.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lake
Lake
Fork.
Lake Fork.
Lake Fork Manufactured Home Community would like to update but I mean, they have viable signage now, so it's
Okay.
not something that's unrepresented right now. So they would just like to do a little yeah.
Facelift or something like that.
Not the
They're on the
permanent
building.
signage. I think, I don't know if they even
They're
have
just using the
anything right
building.
now.
Who?
They have a little flag.
Domino's.
Oh,
Drove glasses.
it's just
on
on
the
the
building.
building.
Mainly I just see the height and brightness is the biggest issues, you know, like that.
Well, I just,
Every time I
these
drive home,
electronic ones, I'm just not as big fan
there's
of,
Taco
but
Bell signs, part of the skyline now.
Should we just say not Saturday?
I know.
Not
They would
Saturday,
probably
not
love that.
Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the two people.
Crosses in our, let's do better.
Alright, thank you,
All right.
Melissa, I think
Okay, so-
you've got good,
Good
Plan
direction, we'll
yeah.
work with that
That's perfect.
and
That's
come back to
perfect
it. So
there.
let's go
Do
to our
this.
drive-through signs.
oh, speaking of
And-
drive-throughs.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I
so,
will mention again, just that a lot of formula restaurants or chain restaurants have a big signage plan that they come with. So anyway, so you can, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
yeah, and we could go back to that chart or not if we need to look at it, but that first line is really, they allow 2 per drive-through service lane. And which is no more than 16 square feet and a maximum of 6 feet in height. So that's pretty straightforward, it's clear. And to Ann's point, we've all been through drive-throughs where they're more than 2, for sure, they can, like, see quite a few more than that. So I would imagine that's gonna feel its own level of restriction, but that's what Univis is doing again. And the rest of these in many ways speak to the aesthetic, which I thought was really appropriate because their signs can also get pretty obnoxious at times and have no relationship to anything other than their branding. So this really ties it to the building and the signs one to another, I think, and that they're proportional, that sometimes that's hard to enforce, but at least it's pointing in the direction that it needs to relate to the building and the other signs. So,
Do we need to talk about lighting with this, or would the other sign code cover how this can be lit?
I think lighting is an important consideration,
Cause they're also electronic now,
yes,
and
they're internally lit.
And it seems like I feel like we had talked about these two be having like dim options after a certain time of day.
I think,
Drive-through should just be shut off after a certain time.
We're just.
Well, and off when it's closed. Like if the business is closed, to me, drive-through signs that don't need to be on. People don't need to be checking out your drive-through while you're closed.
Right, I think, yeah, we should add that.
yeah, I think the same technology applies really as to our electronic sign conversation. There's the technology that allows them to dim.
Yeah.
And we don't have that in our code under lighting right now, so probably this is the place to put it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could dim, but then these specifically, if drive-through signs are specifically called out, then I would say they have to be off when the business is closed.
So this is specifically to the drive-through, what about like directional signs, enter, exit? I think Taco Bell kinda has some of those
Almost all of them will, yeah.
or something,
They would just all, but then it would be more than 2.
right, that's what I'm wondering but if they're not in the drive-through lane, they're at the entrance and exit of.
So maybe we need to address the
So-
directional signs.
So these two would be like menu signs?
Yeah, these are like
Okay.
I
maybe
would
we should
assume.
call them menu signs, like drive-through, just to be more specific.
Product, product service sign or
Yeah,
just,
whatever,
yeah.
something versus directional or navigational signs, I mean,
That's what they usually,
Informational,
they usually call them.
Wayfinding versus.
Yeah,
Well, they could go under drive-through and you could say two can be this size, I don't even know if we have to name them, right? You can have two this side and you can have up to X number of directional signs, but they could all be under a drive-through, right?
Is there a reason we're splitting it into so many categories instead of just saying any and all illuminated signage must follow these guidelines?
Well, I think things like, for instance, the drive-through signs can turn off overnight, but there's a lot of businesses that don't want their lights turning on, their sign light off overnight.
Right.
So if you have this one have a rule to be closed,
I think drive-through signage probably tends to be higher density than advertising, so that's probably why it's got a separate designation.
yeah. But like you'd want like, I don't know. You'd wanna see the temperature even if you're driving through this town at midnight.
Yeah, I'm
No,
not
I'm
saying
just
shut
saying-
everything off, but can't you just say they all have to be dimmed to
Oh,
a
yeah.
certain
I think we could
percentage?
come up with, if we're like coming up with dim requirements, we could make those certain pieces go across the board.
Okay.
But I think in the sign code, you're gonna want, well, for sure, we have the different sections of like monument signs versus
Yeah.
pole signs, which can be one or two poles.
Round or
We're
square.
not, yep, round or square, we're not gonna
It
do
could
that.
actually look like a monument sign.
We're not going down this rabbit hole again, are we?
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Getting it.
Or building signs or whatever, right, so they're already gonna have all those different, we'll have to have them separate.
Yeah.
But I don't know if under drive-through signs, we need to add in the additional ability to put in the directional signs.
Well, we do have the directional signs listed, they can have, they don't count towards the total square footage of what's allowed. Their maximum number is 4, maximum area is 20 square feet. So those little ones you're talking about that are like kind of ground level, they can
Right.
have a few of those based upon this.
Okay, perfect.
I think that's
You
good.
may just want a category of like lighting standards and you could even make those, or you can put them into a table, whichever, but you could just have some
Lighting
lighting
standards?
standards for,
For signage?
especially when we're talking about dark sky
Mm-hmm.
and
So maybe
all
it
these
is,
aspects.
yeah, dark sky, and these are the exceptions within these parameters or
Yeah.
something like that, where you could just have just a section on lighting standards to.
Right.
Yeah, the after hours thing is probably gonna cut so much of what is annoying, and kind of obnoxious.
Cause I kinda look at the table as kind of your dimensional standards, and
Yeah.
then some, your lighting and your architectural design guidelines, and I just, that's how I kind of the layout.
Just to work that out. Okay, so I think what Heather's saying is true, that, we have the monument signage sizes still apply to them, the directional signs, the wall mounted signs, and they're gonna be, asking for most of what we have. So we do have those guidelines for them, that would be true of any business.
It did say, oh yeah, no other sign shall be attached or added, is that something like maybe a promotional, something that's stuck on there, is that what we're talking about?
That would increase the sign of the
The
size
size
of
of
the
the sign.
sign,
Okay.
unable to add on to that.
Is that important to say?
But there's still allowance for non-permanent stuff to be slapped up there, like 99-cent burgers this week only, or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
So,
technically they can't like add to that sign, but they're gonna put that,
yeah.
We do have banner signs that are temporary and, well, they're all temporary. Some need to be permanent and some don't, depending on their size. So it allows a business to open up, they can't have a banner bigger than their permanent sign, but they can have it there for like 60 days.
I just so do it.
Open it up, okay. Alright, so I've gotten some good direction, that might be. Any other thoughts or questions? I don't think there's anything, let's go to the next page, there wasn't, the other codes were pretty quiet about. I guess they're hoping, Breckenridge is hoping not to get a drive-through. Anyway, so then we go to gas stations, which are also
Alright. Sorry, we lost you guys there for a minute. Okay,
Yeah, so we're talking about gas station signage, and the same thing applies to what we just said, we have building signs, we have, pole mounted digital signs, all those things would apply. Plus, there's the addition of the canopies that are part of, a gas station operation. And so, I think, yeah, 2 per canopy.
and is the idea of that like signage on the canopy?
Yeah.
Got it,
It's the
okay.
stuff that's on the side, the perimeter, and not to exceed the height. And 2 per canopy, I don't, usually it's like they have a whole side of a canopy and it has signage that's like Shell gas station, right? And so depending on how they design that, that's what we're talking about. So 2 per canopy seems a little bit odd to me, because it seems like you'd have a sign maybe per street frontage on the canopy.
I think a lot of times they're coming from one direction, they're on one side, coming from the other direction,
Yeah.
you'd see on the other side,
Right.
not necessarily the facing part of the street, but.
The street side.
You know, in rural America, it seems like a gas station is pretty evident and lit up. And then other things, you know, I mean, I can see maybe more signage in a metro area, but in a rural setting such as ours, it doesn't seem like you would need to overdo your canopy signage because it's pretty evident.
The gas pumps themselves, are
Or
signs.
evident,
Yeah.
the canopy is lit for, already, and so it just seems a little much.
Yeah.
I mean, because they are, I mean, I guess I personally am like, if they put a sign on the top of that little canopy or not, I don't know.
The only thing I would maybe add to this, instead of just singling out a gas station, is any type of refueling, whether it be electric or fossil fuel, because at some point, there's gonna be a, what do you call those? Electric
Yeah, the
charging
charging
station
stations.
that might have a canopy because it has solar panels on it or something, and there would be signage on that. I mean, at least between California and Las Vegas, there's a bunch of them, and they have huge canopies because of all the solar panels. And if they have signage on them, so, but they're not gas stations.
Right.
So I would just
Refueling station?
Fueling
It
charge?
is,
recharge or refueling.
As far as canopies go, I feel like I could be silent on this, but if we're
Yeah.
talking about anything else.
I mean, do you wanna think more like being overly prescriptive in the type of like canopy, but like keeping with your theme of design?
Maybe no light on the like other than the lights, obviously.
I mean, it's really
lighting up the
lighting
area, but-
standards and design standards in keeping more with your rural mountain rustic architecture and so maybe we're solving something that we could solve with,
With the design standard.
yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna come in probably and ask for us, what are the signs I'm allowed to have on the canopy? And so, if we don't want to have signs on the canopy, that would be a statement. Or is 1 per street frontage, adequate, cause you're driving by and you can see it, and it's a Shell, and you knew it was a Shell before that anyway, cause of the other signs that are on the site. But that would be typical, so,
I'd say not lighted though.
an unlit canopy.
Well, like the canopy itself can be lit, but I just mean the sign on the
On the
side
side of
doesn't
it,
need to be lit.
I mean, cause it would seem like with the pricing and stuff.
Right.
Like
they start putting, cause there are some in Denver that have like their pricing and stuff
Right.
on the canopy.
Right.
So if the canopy, I would just say like the 2 per canopy, not exceeding the height and not lit.
Maybe just take the lighting out of that equation.
The curveball.
Yeah.
National Park Service has standards for Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, facilities within their boundaries. That would probably be the most stringent. That would
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good
that's a
point.
good point, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a nice.
that would be interesting.
Yeah, because they may have them even more specific to gas stations for the other signs that gas stations have too, which I'd be interested in.
Yeah,
That would be an interesting standard, that's just a good
Yeah.
comment, Dave.
and the lighting under the canopy, right, I think
Yeah, we definitely want the safety thing,
communities
but
have, the communities have won, I think, overall the battle, because there was a time, you know, it was like, we have to have 30-foot candles on the ground or we can't read, and that simply isn't true, you know,
Right.
you can read it with 10 and be just fine, at the most.
Mhm.
So that lighting is part of what just lights up the canopy is. So we'll look at what the Park Service does, how they're managing that.
yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, but that it's okay to have a sign on a canopy, but we want it unlit, that's what I'm hearing, so. Anything else about gas stations that?
So, can I just say, why do they get an extra sign? Like, why is it that
On the
being a
gas
gas station
Yeah.
means you get an extra sign?
Cause they've done it forever, that's how it's always been done, so
No,
therefore,
I don't, it's like,
You
doesn't
can
seem
say,
like
no, you're in
important.
Leadville, and in Leadville, if you wanna
we
be
don't do
here,
it.
we don't do it that way.
They already have a big lit sign that has their name, I don't understand why they get 2 more when everybody else is like,
Mhm.
you know, restricted to 20 feet or 16 feet, it just seems,
I would just say if
Silly.
you want, each sign is an extra 2% revenue and taxes.
there you go, now we're talking.
I would be interested to see what they say, because I could see where if somebody said, well, actually, we're not gonna do that big tall skyline sign, and instead we're putting our signage on the canopy, I would probably prefer the canopy.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that like a total square footage of signage you're allowed
Right.
feels like what all the other businesses have to do. So it seems weird to be able to be like, yeah, you have access to these extra sign
Mm-hmm.
thing, that seems weird to me.
Well, and to your, maybe to your point is, like, you don't know it's a gas station, or, you know, when you're driving by, like, pretty much get that quickly.
We know, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's overkill
Mhm.
and unfair. It's not fair.
Well, I could look at some of maybe the more restrictive examples. I know like Sedona, Arizona is one of the places I think that has been
Limiting
more
them.
aggressive about, for all the same reasons we're talking about.
I think like Aspen proper too, in Pitkin County, their gas stations, I don't think they have anything up high, it's all down low, real low. Mhm.
Cause you know it's a gas station.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you're
And
not
if you don't,
speeding through
you
there
probably
real
shouldn't be
fast,
driving.
I mean, the speed limit's 25 on like the main thoroughfare where the gas stations are. You're not driving by them so fast that you can't see them approaching, you know, unless you're.
I'm not buying gas in Aspen, that's for sure.
I know, right?
I don't care what they're saying.
Yeah.
The $5 a gallon,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, let me do some more research and we'll bring it back. It'll be in a draft code, but we can talk about it, and if we need to tweak it, we can do that. So I appreciate your time and getting out of here before it's too much later. So,
Melissa.
Yeah, thank you
Yes.
so much.
yeah,
Just in time,
to go play.
yeah.
Do you play curling? That's how it's play.
I know, I said that the other day, I was like, we'll go play again, wait, there's a motion to adjourn?
Second, I'm second.
Well, I
everything.
didn't motion it, so.
You can-
Okay, I'll
You
make a
can make
motion, I move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for attending, tell the baby hi.
Don't say to dad.
Bye, everyone.